I'm probably like most of you here in this room that I don't put a whole lot of stock into fortune cookie wisdom. But on a rare occasion, if there's something that I was really hoping for, and I go to a Chinese restaurant and open a fortune cookie, and it assures me that I'm going to get the thing that I want, like there's a part of my heart that flutters and says, okay, maybe this will really happen. This past week, Marilyn was out of town for a few days, and that meant that Bailey and I had more of our share of takeout food than normal. And so when I brought Oriental Inn home for Bailey and I to have dinner this week, and got to the end of the meal and opened up the fortune cookie, and I was thinking about today being Commitment Sunday, my heart couldn't help but leap when I opened that cookie, and I kid you not, inside, this is what it said: the next few days are a lucky time for you. You can take a chance. Now, again, I'm not one to put a whole lot of stock in fortune cookie wisdom, but I couldn't help but interpret this little cookie as being a sign of good luck for our efforts this morning as we come to Commitment Sunday for our capital campaign. True enough, this whole thing that we've been doing to awaken the space, this is a bit of a risk for our community. It is. It's possible that it won't turn out like we hoped. And as we try to risk the chance to come together to awaken the space, I'll admit, I was feeling really good about it when I saw this cookie. And then Friday morning came, and while I was on cloud 9 about this fortune cookie and started looking for signs of good luck elsewhere, maybe a lucky rabbit foot or a penny left on the ground that I could just keep racking up these good luck charms, as all that was swirling around in my head, something else happened on Friday morning. And now, as way of a little bit of backstory, I'll tell you that it's been a challenge to get bids and contracts and quotes and all that stuff for the capital campaign for these projects. And you go to somebody and you're like, well, I'm not really sure if we're going to be able to do this, but how much would this cost? And their first question is always, well, do you have like blueprints or drawings or something that I can go off of other than a cocktail napkin sketch? And so our esteemed capital campaign chair, Donna Marks, very kindly one day took about 300 pages of old blueprint documents that had been rolled up. Some of them were yellow and old, 70 years old in some cases. And Donna takes this stack that's like 2 arms full of blueprint documents down to the business to be scanned in and digitized, so that we could share them, and then also, by the way, not worry that this church, which has already suffered one fire, wouldn't have to worry down the road that as we can control these documents and put them in the safety of the digital cloud, that they would be there forever and ever, no matter what. So Donna had been doing all that, and what she didn't know is that there was one particular, I'm revealing this to her right now in the moment too, but there was one particular set of blueprints, the very ones that we needed, related to what we're looking at for the sanctuary, that had been pulled out from that stack. After sitting in that closet for more than a decade, somehow, the very week that Donna takes the blueprints, that one set that we really needed was pulled out of the stack and didn't get scanned and didn't get digitized. And the only way that I found this out was on Friday morning when I was looking for the lucky rabbit's foot and looking for the lucky penny and looking for a good luck charm sign, that one of the preschool teachers comes to me panicked and nearly in tears. And she pulls up this scroll and unrolls it and says, I think that we accidentally just cut up the church blueprints. It's St. Patrick's Day right around the corner, and we were making 4-leaf clovers, and there was this stack of papers we just thought was scrap paper. And she freaks out, and there's about 40 more of these things in my office right now. not the good luck charm sign that I needed. Now, I'll fast forward to the end of the story that after several phone calls, we were able to track down the original contractor and find their copies, and all will be well. But in the heat of that moment on Friday morning, after discovering all the hard work we had done to assure ourselves that we would be able to control the future and avoid catastrophe, that we would be able to hold on to these documents that we needed forever, I was sitting there in my office Friday morning, and the teacher knocks on the door as I'm working on the sermon to tell me this 2 days before the capital campaign. And in that moment, for the first time in my life, I began to doubt that maybe that fortune cookie had any idea what it was talking about. But you see, the thing is, I thought I was looking for a good luck sign. I thought what I needed was a good luck charm. But what I discovered in that moment, as the plans all torn up were brought to me, what I discovered in that moment that I didn't need another good luck sign. I needed a different message. I needed to hear the whisper of those words as the teacher was holding up these plans that had been shattered. We needed the whisper of the words of the prophet Jeremiah, who says, I know the plans I have for you. Plans to prosper and not to harm. I know the plans I have for you, to give you hope. I know the plans I have for you, to give you a future. You see, it's not in fortune cookies or four-leaf clovers where our luck lies. The blessing, the hope, the trust of knowing the God whom we serve, the God who created each and every one of us, those are the only truly lasting words of wisdom, more than a fortune cookie that can be forgotten, more than a four-leaf clover cut out of blueprints that can be lost and forgotten. The lasting, timeless words of wisdom are those that I know the plans I have for you. They're not the plans that you can make. They're not the plans that you can draw. But when God says that I know I have plans for you, it's another way of saying, and by the way, you don't. I know them. God doesn't say, we know them. I know them. What do you think you know? Show me your plans. And what is it they say? The best way to make God laugh is to bring plans. I know the plans I have for you. We, fellow human beings, cannot control the future. In fact, sometimes the more we try to control it, the more out of control we realize we are. We cannot control the future. All we can do is live into the future that God has set before us. All we can do is learn to discern faithfully that which is our work to do. Challenge, of course, is that most of us, myself included, are not built that way. We want to be in control. We want to be in charge. We want to be assured that we can shape our own destiny, that we can pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, that we can change the outcome if we do our part. And we can fool ourselves into thinking that for long enough. We can fool ourselves into thinking that until the bank calls and says there was a problem. There's another bill past due. We can fool ourselves into thinking that we're in control until an unexpected phone call comes from the office of our doctor. We can discover that we can plan for the future. and it's wise to do so. But we can plan for the future, but we cannot control the future. That's why we need places like this. Life will not work out the way you think it will. If you don't know that yet, then you just haven't lived long enough. Life won't work out the way you think it will. But there is power in a community that comes together to remind ourselves that it's okay we weren't in control. We were never in control in the first place. That was just the illusion. But when we come to this community, we remind each other that there is a better future in store. And that future is better than any one of us could imagine if we could control it on our own. When we bring our collective hearts and minds and dreams and imagination into this place, we can help shape the future by revealing what God is doing, by praying how we can be part of it. The dreams through our community of faith are the discernment of God's future. It's not asking God to change the future. It's being shaped by the people around us to pay attention more carefully to what God is doing, to discern what the future might look like, to dream of a better future. If we're honest, most of us really don't want to hear that. That's why there are all sorts of churches a lot bigger than ours that just tell people we can control the future. And if we give enough tithes and offerings, then we'll be blessed with our own riches that'll come back to us and all that stuff. It's another way to say you're in control. Well, you're not. And it'd be a lot easier and a lot more popular if we could tell people that you were in control. But the challenge of coming to a community where we can hold loosely what the future might look like, where we can allow the people around us to help shape the course for our lives, then we, too, can become dreamers. We can help imagine that God has more in store for our future when we dream together. Sometimes it would be a lot easier to just leave well enough alone, to say, oh, no, your dreams are great. We don't need each other. We don't need to shape each other. We don't need to build each other up. We don't need to challenge each other. You're doing just fine on your own. But when the dreamer comes along, when our dreams in this community help shape one another and challenge one another and help one another grow into the best version of ourselves, when we do that, it can get a little agitating. Sometimes just leave me alone. I'm doing the best I can. And so we begin to resent those dreams. As the great playwright Oscar Wilde once said, that society often forgives the criminal, but it never forgives the dreamer. Perhaps nowhere do we see that more clearly than in the scripture that Anne just read for us a moment ago, that the children so lovingly acted out for us. The Joseph has the same Joseph with the coat of many colors. Joseph has this dream, and it is really obnoxious to his brothers. You guys are going to bow down to me, and it's going to be great. But they don't like the dream. Maybe Joseph had a little bit to learn about humility, but the fact is that he did have this dream. I imagine they were just doing what all brothers did all the time, which is fight until you grow up, and then you never fight again, right? They're fighting for one another, and when Joseph has this dream to tell his brothers, they hate him even more. The dream doesn't do very well. And in response to this dream, the brothers get together and they conspire. And did you read closely what they said? They say to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let us kill him, and we shall see what becomes of his dreams. I think it was a lot harder for Joseph's brothers to realize what we already know today. But this is an ironic statement. You can kill a dreamer, but that doesn't mean that the dream dies. If you've ever been on a pilgrimage to the Civil Rights Museum in my hometown of Memphis, Tennessee, there at the Lorraine Motel where Dr. King was shot and killed, there is a plaque out in front. We have a picture of that plaque. And if you look closely enough at that spot where Dr. King was killed, they have on that plaque the very words of this morning's scripture. Here comes the dreamer. Let us kill him and see what becomes of his dreams. They put that there after Dr. King died because they knew the dream that Dr. King had, the dream that he preached about in that famous speech years earlier, would not be contained by an assassin's bullet. That as amazing as a life as Dr. King lived, that the dream he had was bigger than his own life. Dr. King knew that. He said over and over again that we're not going to get there yet. But somewhere in the back of his mind, I imagine Dr. King knew that in 2020 we would still be fighting for that dream. That we still have work to do, and that even if they killed the dreamer, they cannot kill the dream. Because when our dreams honestly, truly are the dreams that God has for us, they are bigger than any one of us. That is the power of community, a place for dreams to live on. A place where those who come after us will inherit the work that we do and pick it up and take it and make it their own. For in the end, we shall never know what dreams may come. If we only dare to dream in the warmth and the safety and the comfort of our own bed, with the covers pulled up tight over our face. Dreams are only as good as our ability to wake up and to live into them. As Dumbledore said to Harry in the Sorcerer's Stone, it does not do well to dwell on dreams. It does not do well to dwell on dreams and forget to live. Remember that. A dream is only as good as our ability to wake up and to live into it. And for most of us, the problem isn't that we dream too big. It's that we don't dream big enough to align what the future could look like with how God dreams of it. I'm going to close by telling you a quick story about this art critic professor who spends most of his life arguing with his friends over glasses of wine about who the greatest artist in the history of the world is. And they'll argue about whether it's from pointillism or romanticism or postmodernism, and have all these late night debates that would put most of us to sleep. And he can never convince his friends who the world's greatest artist was. They would just sit there and they argue. And one day, the art critic professor gets hit and killed in a car wreck. And he goes to heaven, and he's standing there on the gates of heaven waiting to get in, thinking about what he's going to say. And he gets up to St. Peter at the gate, and he says, I've got a question I've been dying to ask my whole life. Who is the world's greatest artist? And Peter points across the line to some woman sitting there in rags, and he says, there she is, right there. The art critic looks over and doesn't recognize this woman and says, that's impossible. I've never even seen this person before. I don't even know her name. How great of an artist could she be? And Peter says, that is exactly the question. You see, she never picked up a paintbrush. She never discovered that in her future was to be the world's greatest artist. And she went to her grave never once having tried. And the world will never know just how different it would have been had she picked up that paper. Our problem isn't that we dream too big, it's that we don't dream big enough. What dreams may come, friends? We don't need to look to a fortune cookie to find out the answer to that question. We don't need to look to a four-leaf clover and torn-up plans to find out the answer to that question. We need only to wake up and to step into the future that God dreams. What dreams may come? Let's find out together. Amen.